Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Elkhart in front of Cro'hurst. This is the oldest house in Logan County. It not only has a very interesting past, but it's going to have a very interesting future too, because it's very close to being completely restored by a man named Bob Neal, who has a habit of buying older, big homes that need a lot of work, don't they, Bob?
It's an illness, Mark. It's an illness. And I blame my wife, Lynn, on this one, because she's the one that started this project.
This is terrific, though. Here we are at the base of Elkhart Hill,
Yep.
and this is the oldest house, not only here, but in all of Logan County.
Right.
And the Gillette family, who has a very interesting history on this hill, was an integral part of building this house.
John Gelbaugh, the previous owner, told me it was the oldest house still standing. So
yeah,
there we go.
There you go.
And the oldest part of the house is underneath that portico there. It was a kind of a colonial farmhouse with wood siding.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Lathams built the core of the house. They sold the house to the Gillette family. Jesse Gillette inherited it. And as you'll see later in the piece, expanded the house to the west and to the east and to the north.
Mm-hmm.
And then her niece, Mrs. McCarthy, expanded the porches on the east side and so on. So
wow.
anyway,
wow. So it's undergone a lot of changes through the years, and it's still undergoing changes because you've owned it now for 5 years, about 5 years, and you've, like I said, you're close to having it restored, close to having it where you want it.
Close. Yeah. We've got the plumbing, the mechanical, and the electrical pretty well done. We're now working on getting all the little things. There's years worth of trimming to do.
Yeah.
I told you I'm going to retire next year, so I'm 65 now. By the time I'm 70, maybe we can turn a light switch on and the light will come on.
Let's walk up a little closer.
Okay.
This is what you've been able to do, Bob, is you've been able to meld the original in with the new, and it's really terrific.
That was our plan. You know, the house sits on 8 acres. You can see there's a barn off to the east side, and there's this. You can tell this is a historic part of Logan County. Just think, the house was here when trains were invented. The railroad came through after the house. The Civil War was after the house. Abraham Lincoln was friends with the Gillette family, and so who
riding
knows?
His horse by here pretty habitually because he was on his circuit.
As soon as we get done with things we have to do, I'm going to start digging and looking for artifacts.
Well, come on up to the porch. This is the original part of the house. The flagstones, I assume, were here?
I presume they were put on in the 50s when the Dr. MacArthur,
right.
The columns were put on 110 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole portico has been standing like this for quite a long time.
Yep.
The patio was added around the turn of the century. And I don't know what the story is on these concrete benches, but I'm really fond of them. And we've told everybody in the construction and reconstruction, do not drop anything on these benches.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And
just look at those. She designed the patio for these benches.
That's it.
And I don't know if I've ever seen poured concrete benches before. They're terrific.
I've never seen these before.
I think you said that this fountain over here too is one of the original when she expanded the house on the west side.
The porte cochere for the carriage used to be up where those 3 windows are, and the fountain is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the late part of the first decade of the 1900s, she built the west wing of the house and then put this fountain up because we've got a 1912 Sears transfer pump in the basement that pumps the water up for the fountain.
You still have it?
Still got the fountain. Actually, when I dug into the basement, I cut the pipes off, threw the pump away, and one of the kids helping us took it out to the Logan County Correctional Center and they rebuilt it and brought it back as a surprise.
Same pump, and it's still pumping from the same source.
It works great. It's much better than the expensive pump I had purchased to put in the basement.
Oh man!
So we love it. We love anything that still works and is old. So obviously the the pump was not an essential part of the house, but we had the fountain going way before we had any kitchen or bedroom or any of the functional things we really needed. We had this silly pump going out here.
Yeah, well, you had this house for a long time before you, like you said, before you could actually live in it, because you just didn't have it wasn't functioning.
No.
It took that long.
We were living in the other house that we were trying to sell that you've got a few pictures of.
Yeah.
The old Scully place. So once we got it sold, though, we moved here about a year and a half ago, and we love it. We love the location. We love Elkhart, and the history of the house keeps us busy, and that'll be our lives when we're not entertaining our grandkids.
We'll see as we get into the house. If we look at this side of the house, on the west side where it juts out, this has all been added on, and we'll be able to see how that fits in on the inside as we go.
Right.
But all that, and the porches, and the porch, and then the portico or the carriage covered area there, that was all added around 1900.
Around 1900 was the last major addition to the house. So, and I think those are early replacement windows in the dining room area.
Mm-hmm.
So the original windows were replaced with those 100-year-old windows.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Let's go inside.
Let's
what do you say?
Okay.
Okay, Bob. Now we just walked in the south door. Right. Off what looks like the main porch. This would not have been the way most people entered the house through the years, because there's a portico on the west side.
The west side has what has been called over the years a porte cochere, where the carriage entrance was, and so you enter and the porte cochere has moved over the years. So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Okay.
So
but
this is the
we
main,
walk in this way.
Yeah, this is where all the action is.
You don't come in this way, but I mean, if you were going to have guests come in, you might come in this way.
I like this entrance.
I do
I spent a lot of time on that porch right there.
When you see the front of the house from the exterior, as we did, that's the wide porch, and that would be the normal way you would think the flow would go into the house.
The 4 columns, and who's to say that someday it might be an entrance if you put the driveway out front of it.
So the guests would have walked in through the years, and there would have been a wall here near where you are, and you can still see the separation in the floor there where the wall would have been.
The original 1830s house was 2 rooms, 2 parlors. One was used probably for a dining area, the other for receiving guests and place to sit.
And you still use it for a dining area.
Absolutely.
It looks like it's set up for a dining area. And we might make a note on here while we're looking at the dining area. We've got some books and photographs out there. They're going to have a history lesson about this house a little later on.
We've got one of the Gillettes here to talk about
That's right. So we'll learn from the family who really knows the history of the house.
In the 1800s, though, there was built-in side, whatever you call it, to put your dining room tools and things in where the window is there. And the dining room light we found up upstairs, so we moved it down to broaden out the dining room a little bit. The dining room area is 36 feet from end to end. And oh, by the way, the main beam underneath this was put in the 1830s, so it still looks like a tree. It's got round sides on the north and south face, and the top and bottom somebody shaved off flat to make the main beam of this room.
The main beam, okay. And this room, I mean, as we walk through the house, we're going to find out that this was part of the original house, but much of it has been built on as we walk through.
Well, the Gillette says they came into the ownership of the place. Jessie Gillette was quite the builder, apparently. So she
wanted more house, didn't she?
I believe she took the wall out, and she added the west wing as time went along. She added the 4 columns to make it look like a colonial or a Georgian.
Yeah. Now, this is not the west wing. This is part of the original home that we're looking at now, and this would have been the parlor.
You can see in the basement that this was part of the original basement.
Okay. And then we'll walk into what would have been the next addition to the house. You use it as sort of a den area, a library.
Well, library. It had books, and the books and the bookshelves have been here since Jessie Gillette's days, and she had, Dr. MacArthur, who you'll hear about later, was quite a book collector. Jessie was quite a reader. She was in several book clubs in the 1800s, and a lot of these books are signed to my beloved friend Jessie Gillette from so-and-so 1890, and so it's kind of cool.
You have a lot of first edition volumes here.
Yeah, I wish I knew what they were.
And
I'd like to talk to a book person someday.
It's kind of the way you told it to me. The owners of this house said, the books stay with the house.
Yeah.
And so when you bought the house, the books came with it.
Dr. MacArthur's books.
Really old ones, yeah.
Jessie Gillette's books. I don't know if Latham's books are still here, but John Gelbaugh's book collection from a lot of the Civil War stuff. And,
and he was the one that owned the house before you.
John Gelbaugh was the last owner before Lynn and me. So there's
Now behind you over here against this wall to the left of the camera, this is now you have a mirror there now, but this is where the books used to be.
this book, that was wall-to-wall books, just a little opening for the stair enclosure. And back in Jessie Gillette's days, there was a kind of a trophy case built in there where she raised prize Angus and lots of things on the hoof. So she had her trophies on the mantle.
And about what year would this have been added? This
I
part of the house?
believe 1899 to 1900.
Okay. Around
maybe
1900.
finished out by the 2000 or 1910 era.
And we mentioned that a lot of people had entered this way, and this is where the coaches would pull up.
Right.
And now you've got it enclosed. It wasn't always that way, huh?
Well, no, this was what we think was the original footprint, and then in 1950 it was enclosed to make closets on either side, and these interior windows were taken out. So Lynn and I found the marble around the edge in the basement, and then reopened the interior windows so we can see the sunset. The sunsets here are just fabulous, and they'll start any day as fall comes on.
The marble you were talking about that you found in the basement is gorgeous.
Yeah, we love it.
Kind of shined up for you.
And my 75-year-old carpenter and my 65-year-old carpenter, and I'm just a tear-out guy.
You have talented friends, though. That's good.
This is Jessie's front door she put on in the 1890s, because I took this all off and it's got 1896 stamped on the inside of it.
We're going to hear more about Jessie and who she is as we go through the program. As you mentioned, we're going to get a little history lesson. I want to do, before we leave this room, I want to do one more thing, because this was one of the trickiest things you had to deal with. When you wanted to, you came over here, this had been walled off.
This was originally was a wall from day one, and then when the west wing was added, they put bookshelves in, and then there was a interior door here, and then you walk through the stairway opening, and in 1950 they put a telephone booth right here.
A telephone booth.
The coolest thing in the world. Had a folding telephone booth door.
Well, that would have seemed really cool at the time.
Couldn't have been better. When John got here in the 60s, he had teenage daughters and sons, so I'm sure they sat right there and talked a lot. I'm sure Gillette Ransom probably talked a lot on the telephone.
But your stairway up didn't look like this.
Well, we wanted it open a little bit, and we thought if we're going to do anything to change the house, we needed to make this open up more so we could get a more flow through the house. So we're still in the process of finishing it, but Peter Niehaus built the newel posts and put the stairway back.
Yeah, these are new, but they're made to look just like the second floor.
Just like the second, and they go all the way up to the attic dome.
Yeah.
So that'll be done next year. This has taken a while.
Yeah, he did a terrific job. Well, you bought it 5 years ago, and it's taken that long, hasn't it? Yeah.
We're going to retire here next year, so we'll have the stairway finished then, and there's details around here that we haven't done yet, but at least we have a floor here. When we got here, the hardwood was buckled like an accordion.
Is that right?
And so I peeled it up quite easily, and you can see in the basement there wasn't anything below it. It was a little scary.
It's a relief, isn't it, to have it now you're on solid ground. This is the way the dining room we're standing in right now used to look before the window was put in, and it really opened it up a lot. It looks so much bigger now. Gillette Ransom, you had the opportunity to live in this house for a couple of years.
Yes, I did.
And your relatives are the ones that built it and lived in it over the years.
Well, my relatives certainly changed the original house.
Yeah.
They certainly did, yes.
Yeah. I'll bet you get a kick out of coming back here.
Oh,
don't
yes.
you?
Well, I spent my summers as a child here. And I loved it. I spent most of my time in the barn with the cows. As you well know, I'm an animal person.
And now you're a goat farmer.
Goat
right?
and cattle and horses.
You have property right up the hill from where we are. So you get to drive by here all the time.
It's all part of the same farm. This was all Cro'hurst. And when my parents decided to sell this portion of the house to John Gelbaugh, which is later on, they retained all the surrounding acreage, the farm fields, and they built further up the hill.
And when I mention your first name, Gillette, a lot of people are going to put that together with John Dean Gillette, who owned all this property and,
Right.
and was
Right.
the cattle baron we described
Right.
earlier,
Right.
just across the hill.
Right.
Before we get too far, though,
Right.
back in 1836-ish, I think, a John Latham built this house.
Right, that's our understanding, and although there's additional research, of course, that could be done, it appears that John came with his father, who was the first settler for this area, Judge James Latham. And he would have come in 1819 when the entire family moved to Elkhart. And John at that point would have been only 10 years old. 10 years later, he was marrying age, and apparently soon after married, had a couple of children, and died. And during that period of time, we think, is when he built the core of what is now this beautiful house.
And as we look now, his brother, Robert, this fella here, settled the estate and then took over the house after his brother's death.
Well, he and John Gillette apparently handled the estate, and then eventually John bought Robert's share out and continued to farm it until
And this
his
is John
death.
Dean Gillette down here.
Right.
Okay, all right. So
And,
these two men took it over after John died and kept it in the family.
Right,
Yeah, okay.
right.
Now we've heard a lot of talk about Jessie because she was the one that really loved this house and expanded it.
Oh, yes, she
and
did.
sort of more of the footprint that it has now.
She was an amazing woman, and when you consider that when she inherited this property from her father, who died in 1888, Jessie would have been about 30-some years old, just in her early 30s. And she took this on. She was an amazing horsewoman. She had a tremendous business mind, better than any of her brother and sisters did. And there were 8 of them that survived to maturity.
And
So-
this is her right here,
This
right?
is her,
Okay.
yes.
And I'm just going to tip that up just a little bit so we can get a better look at her. Jessie never married.
No, I think that was because she was totally self-sufficient. She didn't need anybody, and so if she could have found somebody that made a good match, she might have taken that on. But among her suitors apparently were George Pullman,
Oh, well, okay.
from
the railroad car company
from the
from
Chicago Pullmans,
Okay.
and Cyrus McCormick.
Wow. Okay.
And those are undocumented but rumored.
Now this is a picture of Jessie on the front porch with a gentleman suitor, possibly, or maybe just a friend. Who
Right.
knows?
There were
But,
quite a few on the list, and I probably shouldn't mention any that might still have relatives around here.
Okay. So that was Jessie, and then you are the granddaughter of the MacArthurs.
Yes.
And we also have photographs of them. Now, Dr. MacArthur and his wife, what was her name?
Gillette Barnes.
Gillette Barnes MacArthur.
MacArthur.
Okay, they lived here for many years.
They moved in when Jessie passed in 1947. About 1949, grandmother and grandfather were ready to retire from Chicago and move in, and they did. And it was a well-deserved retirement for both of them,
There's
I think.
Dr. MacArthur here on the left and Mrs. MacArthur, his wife, on the right. And they lived here for, how many years?
My grandfather died in about 1962, and my grandmother died a few years later, but they both never went to a nursing home. They stayed here. As a matter of fact, one summer I even helped run up and down stairs to help with my grandfather. And it was quite an experience. But they both were able to conclude their lives, finish their lives in the peace of this beautiful surrounding.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing this with us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, Lynn, we mentioned earlier that you and Bob bought the house about 5 years ago.
Yes.
And you didn't move in 5 years ago. And it didn't look like, the kitchen didn't look like this 5 years ago,
No, it
did
did not. No. In fact, not at all. This is totally redone.
Yeah. It was a kitchen. Was this the kitchen?
It was the
though?
kitchen, yes.
Okay, and I guess one of the things we'd notice is that this was it was sectioned off by a wall,
Yes.
and you have a nice little eat-in kitchen area there,
Yes.
but that was separated out before.
This was a wall and cabinets over there.
Yeah, yeah. It was.
Yes.
Would you have to describe it as kind of a mess, or how would you describe the kitchen
Well,
before?
not at first, not when we first moved in. It wasn't a mess until Bob started tearing everything out. We had to tear out the walls and the floor and the ceiling, everything, you know.
Yeah, but you decided
then
it wasn't
became
the way.
a mess.
It became a mess.
Yes.
It wasn't the way you wanted it.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
In fact, you have some really interesting photographs that you have opened up for us here, and we can get a good look at what it looked like. Now we mentioned the wall, and we kind of get a sense of that here because it looks like part of the wall may still be in there. Come around here, Lynn, and
Yes,
take a look at these with me.
Yes.
Describe this one for me.
Yes, this is looking in at this wall right here, and this was a solid wall. We opened it up, took that wall out, and made that doorway out to the TV room. And of course, all of the cabinets came out, and then we were just down to bare nothing.
Yeah.
New windows, we have new windows, new everything really.
Oh,
and
that's
there's
terrific.
the picture of the wall right where he's standing.
There's a good one right here too.
Yeah.
Yep. And and the old cabinets, those old yellow cabinets.
And we took them out, yes.
So this is where the wall came out. It went across here, and now you've got this beautiful sit-in kitchen right here. This eat-in kitchen
Yes.
right here. It's really, really nice. Your retro stove. You bought an
We
old
found
looking
that
stove.
over at the Old House Society in Bloomington, where we found a lot of things. But there was a picture of it when we were over there, and called the people and bought it, got it fixed. Henry is out of Springfield, came and fixed a couple of burners that didn't work. We just thought it looked perfect for the house.
It does. It looks terrific. While we're here, this is unexpected, but let's go this way because I want to show one other thing, one other room.
Yes, now this is the room that we opened up. This was just a porch. It was originally John's office.
It was John, right? The man who lived here before you was a lawyer. It was his
Yes.
office. But
Yes.
even prior to that, it was a living area for the help.
Exactly right.
So
Yes.
what
and I think
Bob's
his
done-
whole family lived back here in this one room, I believe.
So Bob has taken the law office and he's made a bar out of it and a
Yes.
little entertainment area out of it, which is terrific. It's right off the kitchen, and you've got your entrance off the
Absolutely.
to go right out to the garage.
Yes.
Okay, neat. This is really beautiful. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go from your kitchen to your office.
Well, I do need to throw in,
Okay.
just really this June did we get the finished product here of the cabinets in. Got these from Huffman Cabinets. They are in Maroa. They just did a beautiful job, and they were so patient with
custom
me.
built them
They
for
custom
you.
built them.
Yeah.
And installed them. I just love them. They just did a good job.
Terrific.
Everything
Okay.
just turned out so pretty. And the hardwood floor, I actually helped Bernie Blease, the man that put the floor in for us. I actually helped him. He will testify to that.
Yeah, so you learned a little bit about that,
I
huh?
handed him. Yes,
Okay.
I did.
Okay, so now into
Are we
your
ready
office.
going? Yes.
Go into your office. What
This
we
is
call it
where
an
I
office.
spend most of my time, right here.
Okay. And this looks like this used to be an outdoor porch or something
It
like
did.
a porch.
I think John and Joe had it as a bar area. They had a great big bar right here, and we took it out, and those are the original cabinets. Painted this room right at the first, where people could come and eat and rest when they're working.
Yeah.
There were 2 or 3 years there that I had workers here, especially this past year.
Sure.
Every day. Every
Sure.
day.
and originally, back when the MacArthurs owned it, this was she loved her cut plants, didn't she?
Yes,
she
I
would
think
use this
so.
sort of as a greenhouse, and she would
Yes,
use it as a
bring them in.
gardening room.
Yes.
So it is perfect for that because
It
look at
really
all the
is.
light, the natural light you've got.
Oh,
in
I
here.
just love this room. In the winter, it'd be snowing and cold out there, and it just gets so warm in here from the sun.
Yeah,
I love this room.
Sure, you never need heat
Yes,
in here, which as long as the sun's on.
And you can tell I have several different desks.
Yeah, you like to.
I like to keep things going.
multitask.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yes. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Bob. Interesting. Now we mentioned these banisters and the rails, et cetera. These are the original ones that you had to match.
That's right.
On the way up to the second
Yep.
floor.
Peter Niehaus, a carpenter friend of mine, spent a couple of years fiddling around with his lathe and finally figured out the profile. And so just last month, we extended the stairway back to where it used to be. So, but
Terrific.
In the, I think the 1840s house stairway was here, and then in the 1890s or maybe the 1900 edition, Jesse Gillette built a dome on top of the house and brought the stairway on up into the attic.
Well, we're going to get a chance to go up there because that's interesting. We don't know exactly what she had in mind, but we're going to get a chance to
I'll
think.
spend a lot of time up there.
Yeah, we look down this way. We can see this is a 5-bedroom up house. Now you're not finished with it yet, and obviously it's still a work in progress. But
Please
down
be
there is
aware.
one of the bedrooms. There's
Bedroom
a bathroom
and a bath.
And off to the right of the camera, there's another bedroom which is not finished.
Nope.
But let's go this way because this is where you and Lynn have the master.
That's right.
We will be going up there to the. Here's another one of the 5 bedrooms up.
Yep.
This next one down the hall, this one actually has a screened-in porch that you can see from the front of the house.
It's tucked in underneath the portico.
That's neat. That's a nice
That's
option.
a great place to watch it rain. And, oh,
And
by the
today's
way,
a great day to do it.
That's correct. And this was the add-on that was done in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Jesse added this on.
Jesse added
Yeah.
a large bedroom for herself.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Her bed was over here, we think, and there's a push button still in the wall behind the wallpaper to call the servant up in case we need some help.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Jesse-
Now, did you have to put new flooring in?
This is the, I think the MacArthur's put this floor in.
It's in terrific
John Gelbaugh
condition.
kept it in great shape.
Yeah.
And then we just cleaned it and resurfaced it.
Yeah. Oh, it's
we had an
beautiful.
outfit from Lincoln come in and do that for us. And Jessie, when she built this west wing, had a magnificent screened-in porch here because we think she liked to watch the sun go down because you get a great sunset out to the west.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a canvas floor with oil covering on it to keep the water out, and really nice round columns on the corners, and it's still got a copper roof, by the way.
It does.
So,
Well, listen, we promised
let's
that we'd
go
go
up.
upstairs
Okay.
to see her
To the
cupola
dome.
or whatever it is she
Yeah.
calls it. Well, it's kind of steep,
Yeah,
Bob, on the
you don't want to
way
carry
up,
too
and narrow,
many.
steep and narrow.
No refrigerators up here.
Well, you wouldn't need them.
Nah, it's cold enough in the winter.
I mean, I think part of what she had in mind was maybe this is a way to ventilate the house.
I think
too.
it was. There were ventilation areas under the main stairway in the original stair that let the cool air from the basement filter through the house all the way up to here.
Yeah, really
and
nice.
then there's side vents in every direction.
Now you've got some plans. You would need to raise yourself up a little bit to be able to look out these
That's
windows.
right. I'd like to build a catwalk around the 2 sides of this, so there's functionality in being able to see out. Plus, about twice a year, I have to go out in the roof and clean out the gutters. It's not much
It's a good
fun.
way to get to it.
When we painted the soffits, Lynn had me hanging from that rope, and she was holding on to the paint. We'll never do it again.
Live and learn. You were lucky to live.
That's good. Live is the right word for it. But we've stabilized this. It was sinking into the house, and now we think we've got it on sound footing.
Yeah, terrific.
So anyway, someday this will be something. It'll be a hobby room, maybe. I'm not sure.
The Neals are still a long way from finishing with Cro'hurst. Number 1 on the list, central air conditioning. Number 2, the master bathroom. With another Illinois story in Elkhart, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send 1995 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.